Okay, we are continuing with the instructional part of week 1 that we call Pillar 2. This is part 2. We've been discussing paragraph structure, intro, conclusion, and paragraph structure. So let's jump right over here where we just left off with the previous video. I am on page 419 of our Writing Today text, and this is where the text talks about given new paragraphs. So it's a way to create flow in your paragraphs. Basically, the paragraph ends with an idea, a sentence ends with an idea, the next sentence picks that idea up. that sentence ends with an additional idea, the next sentence picks up that idea. So you see here, this sentence ends with Erwin Fleminger, so the next sentence begins with Fleminger. This sentence ends with school children, so the next sentence begins with the children. Ends with strange artifacts, the next sentence begins with strange artifacts. So it creates a really strong flow. A lot of my students bookmark this page or highlight it in some way. Another thing that you'll see are some transitions at first. One of, recently, soon. So it's a very good example paragraph of creating flow because we have the transitions and we have the given new. So that sums up paragraphs. So each paragraph should have a specific claim or topic sentence, should have 3 to 4 pieces of evidence that support that claim, and then the conclusion. And there are many ways to create a smooth flow in paragraphs that we discussed. Let's look finally, the last thing, chapter 16 in our textbook. We're going to look at page 365, and I want to just point out some tips for writing that really will quickly improve your writing. Guideline number 2, make the doer the subject of this sentence. So what you want to see, let's remove this phrase here, this prepositional phrase, and just say, hey, the sentence starts with the report was completed. So that's a thought, the report was completed. Well, we always want to strive to have an actor in this sentence. So this says a doer, but we also want to think of actor. So who is acting in this sentence? Well, we have the report was completed. So it's very hard for the reader to grab onto that because they don't have a person in mind. So switch it around and make sure that we know right away with this sentence who is doing the acting. So Sheila completed the report is your sentence there, a stripped down simple sentence. It goes along with the next one, putting the subject early in the sentence. So we don't really know what this subject is. We think it might be the Sandia Mountains ecosystem, but then we see drought, then we see a year, and then we see black bears. Black bears is really what the sentence is about. So we need to put black bears at the very beginning. So revise it so that the actor, once again, is right there at the beginning. We want to make sure that there is action in the verb and it's not passive. So you'll have a passive when you have, let me rephrase that, a passive sentence, it just doesn't give us the subject right away. The detective is the person who conducted an investigation. Just put, again, the actor at the very beginning. The detective investigated last night's homicide. You'll see passive when somebody might say, I didn't get him called today. So the word get, the person who, and also the preposition by will signal a passive voice. So some examples of passive voice on my very dull and boring screen. I didn't get him called. If you would change that for I didn't call him. It's much more clear that way. The interview was conducted by the poll group. Again, put your subject first. The poll group conducted. Conducted the interview. The person who called was Terry. Why don't you just say Terry called? So make sure that you're using action, active voice, and avoid that was. Notice most of these are was. was here, and passive voice. So by is another one. This is written, oops, by me. Just say I wrote this. Okay, so watch out for those. I want to show you two more things you might note on the papers that you get back from me, the feedback, that I say you might be a bit wordy in a few areas. Maybe you're not, maybe you're very concise, but I usually do catch some wordiness, and if there is wordiness, it's because you have probably a bunch of prepositional phrases. So prepositions of, in, over, through, in, out, those are our prepositions. This year's increase in the success of the basketball team called the Hokies of Virginia Tech offered a demonstration of the importance of a coach with a national reputation for the purposes of recruiting. Try to get rid of those and see if you can concisely stick them together. So we have this year's successful Virginia Tech Hokies. So all of that is put together. Basketball team demonstrated the importance of a nationally known coach for recruiting. Prepositions are necessary. Keep them in there. Just don't overdo it. And the final thing I want to point out, the final tip, is guideline 8. Use sentences that are breathing length. A reader will really get weary and they will lose the main point. They will lose your claim if the sentence is too long. So make sure you make obvious stops and starts with your sentences. So every good presentation will give a conclusion. It should link back to the introduction. So in conclusion, we looked at Objective 2, invention, and discovered that we save so much time in the long run if we pause and work through our thoughts, think about our audience, and think about our main point before we begin writing. And then we guide ourselves with that through inquiry, where we think through several questions and reason through several ideas. We put that all together in organization. And this followed chapters 14 with invention, chapters 15, 19, and 20 with paragraph structure. And then we ended with how to strengthen your sentences from chapter 16. So I hope that you find all of this very relevant and useful, and I hope to see it coming through in your writings that you submit in this class. Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions, email or call me.